Christmas Eve. Snow falling under streetlights. Aaron Cole pulled the car to a stop in front of the estate where his boss lived alone. He turned to leave, but Charlotte held his hand. "Don't go yet." Her voice quiet but clear. Aaron froze. Now, standing at the line between employer and employee, between duty and something else entirely. Could one Christmas night change everything? That morning, Aaron had woken at 5:30, same as every weekday. The apartment was cold. He made coffee in the dark kitchen, listening to the radiator clank and hiss. Noah shuffled in around 6, hair sticking up, still half asleep. 14 years old and growing too fast. Aaron had already set out cereal and milk on the counter. "Remember to lock the door when you leave for school," Aaron said, pouring himself a second cup. Noah nodded, yawning. "Yeah, Dad. I know. And text me when you get home." "I will." Aaron watched his son eat in silence. The kid never complained, never asked for more than what they had. That alone made Aaron want to give him everything. He left the apartment at 6:45. The city was still gray, street lights cutting through the early winter fog. Traffic was light. He drove across town to the private garage where the company car was kept. A black sedan. Clean. Anonymous. Exactly the kind of vehicle Charlotte Winslow preferred. Aaron had been her driver for 2 years. He'd been hired not because he was the best driver in the city, but because he knew when to stay quiet. Charlotte didn't like small talk. She didn't like questions. She liked efficiency and silence, and Aaron gave her both. Most mornings, he picked her up at 7:30. She would step out of her building in a sharp suit, heels clicking against the pavement, and slide into the back seat without a word. Sometimes she worked on her laptop. Sometimes she made calls. Aaron kept his eyes on the road and his mouth shut. It was a good job. The pay was better than anything else he'd found. The hours were predictable, and it kept Noah fed, clothed, and safe. That was all that mattered. By the time Aaron pulled up to Charlotte's building that Christmas Eve morning, snow had started falling. Thin flakes, almost invisible in the gray air. He checked his watch. 7:28, 2 minutes early. At 7:30 exactly, Charlotte emerged from the building. She wore a long black coat and carried a leather briefcase. Her expression was unreadable, as always. She opened the door herself and sat down without looking at him. "Good morning, Ms. Winslow," Aaron said, pulling into traffic. She didn't respond. She never did. The day passed like most others. Aaron drove her to 3 meetings across the city. He waited in parking garages and side streets, engine idling, heat on low. Between stops, he checked his phone. Noah had texted him a photo of a worksheet with a note. "Finished early." Aaron sent back a thumbs up. By 5 in the evening, the snow was heavier. Charlotte's last meeting ran late. Aaron sat in the car outside a glass office tower, watching people hurry past with their heads down, clutching shopping bags and coffee cups. Christmas lights blinked in every window. Families, couples, groups of friends laughing and shouting across crosswalks. He thought about Noah, alone in the apartment. The kid said he didn't mind. Said he understood. But Aaron still hated it. At 6:15, Charlotte finally came out. She looked tired. She climbed into the back seat and closed the door harder than usual. Aaron glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Home, Ms. Winslow?" "Yes." He pulled into traffic. The streets were slick with snow. Brake lights glowed red ahead of them, stretching out in long rows. Aaron kept his distance from the car in front of him, hands steady on the wheel. They were halfway to Charlotte's estate when Aaron saw her, an older woman lying on the sidewalk near a bus stop. She wasn't moving. Snow was already gathering on her coat. Aaron slowed the car. He glanced in the mirror. Charlotte was staring through the window, her face blank. "Ms. Winslow," Aaron said carefully, "there's someone on the ground. I think she's hurt." Charlotte looked up. Her gaze shifted to the sidewalk. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded once. "Stop the car." Aaron pulled over. He turned on the hazard lights and got out, leaving the engine running. The cold hit him immediately. He jogged to the woman and knelt down beside her. She was conscious, but barely. Her eyes were unfocused. Her breathing was shallow. Aaron touched her shoulder gently. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She blinked at him, trying to speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Aaron looked back at the car. Charlotte had stepped out and was standing a few feet away, watching. She didn't come closer. "We need to get her to a hospital," Aaron said. Charlotte met his eyes. She didn't argue. She just nodded again. Aaron helped the woman to her feet. She was light, fragile. He guided her carefully to the car and opened the back door. Charlotte had already moved to the front passenger seat. The woman slumped against the seat, breathing hard. Aaron closed the door and got back behind the wheel. "Nearest hospital is 15 minutes from here," he said. Charlotte didn't object. She just stared straight ahead. Aaron drove faster than usual, weaving through traffic. The woman in the back seat groaned softly. Aaron kept checking the mirror, making sure she was still awake. When they arrived at the emergency entrance, Aaron got out and flagged down a nurse. 2 attendants came out with a wheelchair. They took the woman inside, asking Aaron questions he couldn't answer. He stayed with them while they checked her in. Charlotte remained in the car. 10 minutes later, a young doctor came out to the waiting area. She looked tired, her scrubs wrinkled. "She's stable," the doctor said. "Looks like she fell and hit her head. We're running tests, but she should be okay." Aaron nodded. "That's good." The doctor glanced at a clipboard. "Do you know her?" "No. We found her on the street." "Well, she's lucky you stopped." The doctor looked at him more closely. "She doesn't have insurance. The bill's going to be a few $100s at least." Aaron didn't think. He just reached for his wallet. "I'll cover it." The doctor raised her eyebrows. "You sure?" "Yeah." He handed over his card. The doctor took it and walked back to the desk. Aaron stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the fluorescent lights overhead. It wasn't a small amount of money. He'd have to shift some things around. Maybe skip groceries for a week. But it didn't matter. The woman had needed help. He'd been there. That was enough. When the transaction went through, the doctor returned his card. "You're a good person," she said simply. Aaron shook his head. "Just did what anyone would do. Not everyone would." He didn't know what to say to that. He just nodded and walked back outside. Charlotte was still in the front seat, staring through the windshield. Aaron climbed in and started the engine. Neither of them spoke. They drove in silence for several minutes. The snow had stopped. The streets were quieter now. Most people had gone home. Finally, Charlotte spoke. Her voice was softer than usual. "You paid for her?" It wasn't a question. Aaron kept his eyes on the road. "Yeah." "Why?" He thought about that. "Because she needed it." Charlotte turned to look at him. He could feel her gaze, sharp and steady. He didn't look back. "You didn't have to," she said. "I know." Another long silence. Then Charlotte looked away, back through the window. But something in the air between them had shifted. Aaron felt it, even if he couldn't name it. When they finally reached her estate, Aaron pulled into the circular driveway and stopped near the front door. Charlotte didn't move right away. She sat there, staring at the dark windows of her house. Aaron waited. He knew better than to rush her. After a moment, she reached for the door handle, but before she opened it, she glanced back at him. "Thank you," she said quietly. Aaron blinked. In 2 years, she'd never thanked him for anything. "Just doing my job, Miss Winslow," he said. She shook her head slightly. "No, that wasn't your job." She got out of the car and walked toward the house, her footsteps crunching in the thin layer of snow. Aaron watched her unlock the door and step inside. The lights came on, one by one, behind the tall windows. Then the door closed. Aaron sat there for a moment, hands still on the wheel. He didn't know what had just happened, but something had. He checked his phone. Noah had texted him 20 minutes ago. "When are you coming home?" Aaron typed back, "On my way. Now." He put the car in gear and drove away from the estate, the lights of Charlotte's house fading in the rearview mirror. The streets were empty. The city looked clean under the fresh snow, almost peaceful. Aaron thought about the woman in the hospital. He thought about Charlotte's face when she'd thanked him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe he'd done something right. When he got home, Noah was on the couch, playing a game on his phone. He looked up when Aaron walked in. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, kid. Long day." Aaron took off his coat and hung it by the door. "Yeah, little longer than usual." Noah nodded, already looking back at his screen. "There's pizza in the fridge if you want some." "Thanks." Aaron sat down next to his son. The apartment was warm. The TV was on low in the background. Outside, snow was falling again, soft and steady. Noah glanced at him. "You okay?" Aaron smiled. "Yeah, I'm okay." And for the moment, he was. 3 days after Christmas, Aaron woke earlier than usual. He couldn't stop thinking about that night, about the woman on the sidewalk, about Charlotte's voice when she'd said thank you. He made breakfast for Noah, same routine as always. But his mind was somewhere else. When he arrived at Charlotte's building at 7:30, she was already outside, waiting. That had never happened before. She always made him wait at least a minute or two. She opened the door and slid into the back seat. Aaron caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked like she hadn't slept much either. "Good morning, Ms. Winslow," he said. She met his eyes in the mirror. "Good morning, Aaron." He almost missed the turn onto the main road. She'd never used his name before. They drove in silence for a few blocks. Then Charlotte spoke again, her voice measured. "The woman from that night," she said. "Have you heard anything?" Aaron shook his head. "No, but the doctor said she'd be okay." Charlotte looked through the window. "You paid for her care." "I did." "That wasn't necessary." Aaron kept his eyes on the road. Felt like it was. She didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her tone had softened. "Most people wouldn't have done that." "I'm not most people." Charlotte's gaze shifted back to him in the mirror. She studied him for a long moment, like she was seeing something she'd missed before. "No," she said quietly. "I suppose you're not." The rest of the drive passed without conversation, but the silence felt different, less distant, more aware. Aaron dropped Charlotte at her first meeting and waited in the parking garage. He checked his phone. No messages from Noah. That was normal. The kid was probably in class. But Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The air felt heavier, like the world had tilted slightly, and he was still trying to find his balance. When Charlotte came back to the car 2 hours later, she didn't immediately bury herself in work. She sat back in the seat, staring at nothing. "Do you celebrate Christmas, Aaron?" she asked suddenly. He glanced at her in the mirror. "With my son, yeah. Nothing big. Just the two of us." "That sounds nice." There was something in her voice. Not envy, exactly. More like longing. Aaron didn't push. He just drove. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Charlotte spoke more, asked questions, used his name. The distance between them was shrinking, and Aaron didn't know how to feel about it. One evening, nearly a week after Christmas, Charlotte had a late meeting. Aaron dropped her off at a restaurant downtown and circled the block, looking for parking. When he finally found a spot, he sat in the car with the engine off, watching people walk past, Couples holding hands, families laughing, groups of friends meeting up for drinks. Aaron thought about his own apartment. Quiet. Empty, except for Noah. They'd have dinner together later. Maybe watch a movie. It was enough. It had to be. But tonight, for some reason, it didn't feel like enough. When Charlotte finally came out of the restaurant, it was nearly 8. She looked exhausted. She climbed into the back seat without a word. Aaron started the engine. "Home, Ms. Winslow." She didn't answer right away. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Yes, but take your time." Aaron frowned. "Is everything okay?" Charlotte looked through the window. "I just don't feel like rushing." So Aaron drove slowly. He took the long route, avoiding the highway. The streets were quieter here, lined with old brownstones and bare trees. Christmas lights still blinked in windows. Wreaths still hung on doors. Charlotte stared out at it all, her expression unreadable. When they finally reached her estate, Aaron pulled into the driveway and stopped near the front door. He expected her to get out immediately, like she always did, but she didn't move. Aaron glanced at her in the mirror. She was staring at the house. The windows were dark. The place looked cold. "Ms. Winslow?" he said gently. She blinked, as if coming back from somewhere far away. Then she turned to look at him directly, not through the mirror. "Don't go yet." Aaron's hand was already on the gearshift. He stopped. "I'm sorry," he said. Charlotte's voice was quiet but steady. "Don't go yet. Please." Aaron looked at the house, then back at her. "Do you need something?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. "No, I just—" She stopped herself. Then she tried again. "Would you come inside for a moment?" Aaron's first instinct was to say no. This was crossing a line. He was her driver. She was his boss. There were rules. But something in her eyes stopped him. She looked tired. And alone. "Okay," he said. Charlotte got out of the car. Aaron followed, locking the doors behind him. The air was cold and sharp. Snow crunched under their feet as they walked to the front door. Inside, the house was exactly as Aaron had imagined. High ceilings, clean lines, expensive furniture, everything perfectly arranged and completely empty. Charlotte took off her coat and hung it in the closet. She didn't look at him. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked. "Sure." She walked into the kitchen. Aaron stood in the hallway, unsure where to go. After a moment, he followed her. The kitchen was all white marble and stainless steel. Charlotte pulled a bottle of wine from a rack and poured 2 glasses. She handed one to Aaron without a word. He took it. Their fingers brushed for a second. Charlotte leaned against the counter, holding her glass but not drinking. "Do you know why I hired you?" she asked. Aaron shook his head. "You needed a driver." "I needed someone who knew how to be quiet." She looked at him directly. "Most people can't stand silence. They fill it with noise, small talk, questions. You never did that." "Didn't think you wanted it." "I didn't." She took a sip of wine. "But tonight, I think I do." Aaron set his glass down on the counter. "What do you want to talk about?" Charlotte looked away. "Why are you spending Christmas alone?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm not alone. I have my son. But no one else." Aaron thought about that. His mother left when he was 2. Decided she didn't want the responsibility. "I haven't been with anyone since." Charlotte nodded slowly. "And you're okay with that?" "I have to be." She studied him for a long moment. "You gave up a lot, didn't you?" "I gave up what I had to." Charlotte set her glass down. She crossed her arms, as if trying to hold herself together. "I don't have anyone," she said quietly. "My parents and I don't speak. Haven't in years. They didn't approve of the way I lived my life. Too focused on work, not focused enough on family. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Ironic, isn't it? I built everything they said I should want, and now I have no one to share it with. Aaron stood there, listening. I spend every Christmas alone, Charlotte continued. I tell myself it's fine, that I prefer it this way. But the truth is, I'm just too proud to admit I was wrong. She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. You stopped for that woman, she said. You didn't hesitate. You just helped her. No questions. No conditions. I've spent my whole life building walls, and you just walked past all of them like they didn't exist. Aaron took a step closer. Ms. Winslow. Charlotte, she said. My name is Charlotte. Charlotte? He said it carefully, like testing the weight of it. You're not wrong for wanting what you wanted. You're just human. She shook her head. I don't feel human most of the time. I feel empty. Aaron reached out and touched her hand, just lightly, just enough to let her know she wasn't alone. Charlotte looked down at their hands. Then she looked up at him, and before Aaron could think, before he could talk himself out of it, she leaned in. Her lips were an inch from his. Aaron could feel the heat of her breath, could see the way her eyes had softened, could feel his own heart pounding in his chest. And then he stepped back. Charlotte's eyes widened slightly. I can't, Aaron said quietly. She stared at him. Why? Because my son is waiting for me at home. Charlotte's face fell. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You didn't do anything wrong, Aaron said quickly. But I can't do this. Not like this. Charlotte wrapped her arms around herself again. She looked small suddenly, vulnerable. I understand, she said softly. Aaron picked up his coat from the chair. He didn't want to leave. Every part of him was screaming to stay. But he couldn't. I should go, he said. Charlotte nodded. She didn't look at him. Aaron walked to the door. His hand was on the handle when she spoke again. Aaron. He turned. Charlotte was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, her arms still crossed, her expression unreadable. Thank you, she said, for stopping, for listening, for being kind. Aaron nodded. Good night, Charlotte. Good night. He stepped outside. The cold hit him immediately. He walked to the car, got in, and sat there for a moment, staring at the house. The lights were still on. He could see Charlotte's shadow moving behind the curtains. Then the lights went off, one by one. Aaron started the engine and drove away. The next few days were different. Wrong, somehow. When Aaron picked Charlotte up the following morning, she was back to her usual self. Cold, professional, distant. She got into the back seat without a word and worked on her laptop the entire drive. Aaron didn't try to talk to her. He just drove. But he could feel the shift. The air between them was heavier now, weighted with everything they hadn't said. A week passed, then another. One morning, Aaron arrived at Charlotte's building and waited. She didn't come out at 7:30, or 7:35, or 7:40. At 7:45, she finally emerged. She looked tired. She got into the car without meeting his eyes. Good morning, Ms. Winslow, Aaron said carefully. She didn't respond. They drove in silence. Aaron kept glancing at her in the mirror. She was staring through the window, her face blank. The pattern repeated, day after day. The silence grew colder, the distance wider. Aaron started to wonder if he'd made a mistake, if he should have stayed that night, if he'd hurt her by leaving. But every time he thought about it, he remembered Noah. Waiting at home, depending on him. He couldn't regret choosing his son, even if it meant losing something he hadn't known he wanted. 3 weeks after that night, Charlotte had a meeting that ran late. Aaron waited in the parking garage, scrolling through his phone. When she finally came down, She looked exhausted. She climbed into the back seat and closed her eyes. Aaron drove carefully, trying not to hit any potholes. When they reached her estate, he pulled into the driveway and stopped. Charlotte didn't move. She just sat there, eyes still closed. "Ms. Winslow?" Aaron said gently. She opened her eyes and looked at him in the mirror. "I'm thinking about letting you go." Aaron's stomach dropped. "What?" Charlotte's expression didn't change. "I think it would be better, for both of us." Aaron turned in his seat to face her. "Is this because of what happened?" "It's because things have become complicated," Charlotte said evenly. "And I don't like complications." Aaron stared at her. "So that's it? You're just going to fire me?" "I'm giving you notice," she said. 2 weeks. That should be enough time to find something else." Aaron felt anger rising in his chest, not at her, at himself, at the situation, at everything. "Fine," he said tightly. Charlotte got out of the car without another word. She walked to the door, unlocked it, and disappeared inside. Aaron sat there, hands gripping the wheel, trying to breathe. Then he put the car in gear and drove away. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. 2 weeks. He'd have to find another job, something stable, something that paid enough to keep Noah fed and safe. But that wasn't what bothered him most. What bothered him was the look in Charlotte's eyes when she'd said it would be better for both of them. She'd been lying, and so had he. The 2 weeks crawled by. Aaron showed up every morning at 7:30. Charlotte got into the back seat without looking at him. They drove in silence. No small talk, no questions, just the hum of the engine and the sound of tires on pavement. Aaron had started looking for other jobs. He'd sent out applications. A few companies had called him back for interviews. One had made an offer. Less pay than what Charlotte had given him, but the hours were more predictable. Mornings and afternoons only. No late nights, no last-minute changes. It was better for Noah. That's what Aaron kept telling himself. But every time he thought about leaving, something twisted in his chest. On the last day, Aaron arrived at Charlotte's building earlier than usual. He sat in the car, hands on the wheel, staring at the entrance. This was it. After today, he'd never see her again. Charlotte came out at 7:30, same as always. She wore a dark coat and carried her briefcase. She opened the door and sat down without a word. Aaron pulled into traffic. The streets were crowded with morning commuters. The sky was gray and low, threatening snow. They drove to Charlotte's office in silence. When Aaron stopped in front of the building, Charlotte gathered her things, but didn't get out right away. "This is your last day," she said, her voice flat. "Yes, ma'am." She looked at him in the mirror. Her expression was unreadable. "I've already arranged for your final check to be sent to your address. You'll receive it by the end of the week." Aaron nodded. "Thank you." Charlotte opened the door. Then she stopped and looked back at him. "I hope you find something better," she said quietly. Aaron didn't know how to respond to that. So he just said, "Take care, Ms. Winslow." She got out and walked into the building without looking back. Aaron sat there for a moment, watching her disappear through the glass doors. Then he drove away. He didn't go straight home. He drove around the city aimlessly, turning down streets he didn't recognize, passing buildings he'd never noticed before. The snow started falling around noon, soft and steady. By the time Aaron finally pulled into his apartment complex, it was nearly 2 in the afternoon. Noah would still be at school. The apartment would be empty. Aaron sat in the car, staring at the building. His phone buzzed. A text from the company that had made him the job offer. They wanted him to start the following Monday. Aaron typed back a quick confirmation. Then he turned off his phone and leaned back in the seat. He thought about Charlotte, about the way she'd looked at him that night in her kitchen. about the way she'd pulled away when he'd stepped back. He wondered if she was thinking about him too. 3 days later, Aaron was making dinner when someone knocked on his door. Noah was in his room, headphones on, doing homework. Aaron wiped his hands on a towel and walked to the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, Charlotte was standing in the hallway. Aaron's breath caught. She looked different. She wasn't wearing a suit, just jeans and a sweater. Her hair was down. She looked nervous. "Ms. Winslow," Aaron said, his voice barely above a whisper. Charlotte shook her head. "Charlotte. Just Charlotte." Aaron glanced over his shoulder. Noah's door was still closed. He stepped out into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind him. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Charlotte looked down at her hands. "I needed to see you." "Why?" She met his eyes. "Because I made a mistake." Aaron waited. Charlotte took a breath. "That night, when I asked you to stay, when I said, 'Don't go yet.' That wasn't a command. It wasn't about work. It was—" She stopped, struggling to find the words. "It was me asking you not to leave, as a person, not as your boss." Aaron felt something tighten in his chest. "I know." "Then why did you leave?" Aaron leaned against the wall. "Because my son was waiting for me. Because I couldn't just walk into something without thinking about what it would mean for him." Charlotte nodded slowly. "I understand that. I do. But I need you to know something." "What?" She looked at him directly. "I didn't let you go because I wanted to. I let you go because I was scared. Because I didn't know how to be around you anymore. Because every time I saw you, I remembered what I almost had. And it hurt." Aaron stared at her. "You think it didn't hurt me?" "I don't know," Charlotte said quietly. "That's why I'm here. To find out." Aaron ran a hand through his hair. "Charlotte, I don't know what you want from me." "I want you to tell me the truth," she said. "Do you feel anything for me? Or was that night just—" "It wasn't just anything," Aaron said, cutting her off. "I think about you every day. I think about what might have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd been selfish for once in my life." Charlotte took a step closer. "Then why didn't you?" Aaron looked away. "Because I was scared too. Scared of what it would mean. Scared of stepping into your world. Scared of failing. Scared of hurting my son." He met her eyes again. "But most of all, I was scared of losing you before I even had you." Charlotte's expression softened. "You're not going to lose me." "How do you know?" "Because I'm standing here," she said simply. "Because I came to find you. Because I'm tired of being afraid." Aaron looked at her for a long moment. "It's not that simple." "I know it's not," Charlotte said. "But it doesn't have to be complicated either. We don't have to rush. We don't have to figure everything out right now. We just have to start." "Start what?" Charlotte smiled slightly. "Being two people who care about each other. Not a CEO and a driver. Not someone with money and someone without. Just Charlotte and Aaron." Aaron felt something crack open inside him, something he'd kept locked away for years. "What about Noah?" he asked quietly. "What about him?" "He's my priority. He always will be." Charlotte nodded. "I wouldn't expect anything less. And I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to let me in. Slowly. Carefully. However you need to do it." Aaron looked at the door to his apartment. Then he looked back at Charlotte. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted. "Neither am I," Charlotte said. "But I think we could figure it out together." Aaron thought about that, about what it would mean to say yes, about what it would mean to say no, and then he made his choice. "Okay," he said. "Let's try." Charlotte's face broke into a smile, a real one, the first Aaron had ever seen. She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm. "Thank you," she said softly. Aaron squeezed her hand. "Don't thank me yet. You don't know what you're getting into." Charlotte laughed. "I think I have some idea." They stood there for a moment, just holding hands in the dim hallway. Then Aaron let go and opened the door to his apartment. "Do you want to come in?" he asked. Charlotte looked past him into the small living room. It was nothing like her house. The furniture was old, the walls were bare, but it was warm, and it was real. "I'd like that," she said. Aaron stepped aside and let her in. Noah's door opened a few seconds later. He stepped out, pulling off his headphones. He stopped when he saw Charlotte standing in the living room. Dad?" Noah said, looking between them. Aaron walked over to his son. "Noah, this is Charlotte." "Charlotte, this is my son, Noah." Charlotte smiled at him. "Hi, Noah. It's nice to meet you." Noah looked at his father, then back at Charlotte. "Hi," he said slowly. Then he glanced at Aaron again. "So, are you Dad's new boss or something?" Aaron shook his head. "Not exactly." "Then who is she?" Charlotte spoke before Aaron could answer. "I'm someone who'd like to get to know your dad better, if that's okay with you." Noah studied her for a moment. Then he shrugged. "I guess, as long as you're not weird about it." Charlotte laughed softly. "I'll do my best." Noah looked at Aaron. "Can I go back to my homework?" "Yeah, go ahead." Noah walked into the kitchen first, grabbed a soda from the fridge, then headed back to his room. Before closing the door, he called out, "Nice to meet you, Charlotte." "You too, Noah." The door clicked shut. Charlotte turned to Aaron. "He seems like a good kid." "He is," Aaron said quietly. Charlotte looked around the apartment. "This is nice." Aaron laughed. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not," Charlotte said. "It feels like a home." "Mine doesn't." Aaron gestured to the couch. "Sit. I'll make us some coffee." Charlotte sat down, her hands folded in her lap. Aaron went into the kitchen and started the coffee maker. A few minutes later, he came back with 2 cups. He handed one to Charlotte and sat down beside her. "He's protective of you," Charlotte said. "He has reason to be." Charlotte took a sip of coffee. "You've done a good job with him." Aaron looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because he's not afraid to speak his mind," Charlotte said. "That takes trust." They sat there in silence for a while, drinking their coffee. The apartment was quiet. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic outside. After a while, Charlotte set down her cup. "I should go." Aaron stood up. "I'll walk you out." They went to the door. Charlotte put on her coat and turned to face him. "Thank you for letting me in," she said. Aaron smiled. "Thank you for coming." Charlotte reached out and touched his hand. "Can I see you again?" "Yeah," Aaron said. "I'd like that." "Good." She leaned in and kissed him on the cheek, just lightly, just enough. Then she stepped back and walked down the hallway. Aaron stood in the doorway, watching her go. When she reached the stairs, she turned and waved. Aaron waved back. Then she was gone. Aaron closed the door and leaned against it. He felt lighter somehow, like something heavy had been lifted off his chest. Noah's door opened. He stuck his head out. "She gone?" Noah asked. Aaron nodded. "Yeah." Noah came out and sat on the couch. "So what happens now?" Aaron sat down beside him. "I don't know yet." Noah looked at his father. "Do you like her?" Aaron thought about that. "Yeah, I think I do." Noah nodded slowly. "She seems okay. Just don't be stupid about it, all right?" Aaron laughed. "I'll try not to." Noah picked up the remote and turned on the TV. They sat there for a while, not saying much. Outside, the evening darkened. The city lights came on, one by one. And for the first time in a long time, Aaron felt like maybe things were going to be okay. Over the next few months, things changed slowly. Charlotte called. They met for coffee, then for dinner. Always careful, always respectful of the boundaries Aaron had set. She met Noah again, then again. At first, the kid was wary, but Charlotte didn't push. She asked him about school, about his games, about his life. And slowly, Noah started to warm up to her. Aaron started working his new job. The hours were better. The pay was less, but it was enough, and it gave him more time with Noah. Charlotte came over on weekends sometimes. They'd watch movies, make dinner, talk about everything and nothing. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, difficult conversations, times when Aaron wondered if they were making a mistake, but they kept trying, and somewhere along the way, it started to feel right. 1 year later, on Christmas Eve, Aaron pulled the car into the driveway of Charlotte's estate. But this time, he wasn't driving as her employee. Noah was in the back seat, headphones on, scrolling through his phone. He'd turned 15 2 months ago, taller, a little more confident, but still the same kid. He looked up when the car stopped. "We here?" Noah asked, pulling off his headphones. Aaron nodded. "Yeah." Charlotte came out of the house. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. Her hair was down. She smiled when she saw them. Aaron got out of the car. Charlotte walked over and kissed him, just quickly. Just enough. "Ready?" Aaron asked. Charlotte nodded. "Ready." Noah climbed out of the back seat. He looked at Charlotte. Hey, Noah," Charlotte said. "You bring what I asked?" Noah grinned and held up a wrapped package. "Yeah, but I still think it's a weird gift." Charlotte laughed. "Trust me, your dad's going to love it." Noah rolled his eyes but smiled. They walked toward the house together. Charlotte fell into step beside Aaron, their hands brushing. Noah walked ahead of them, already texting someone on his phone. Under the streetlights, under the falling snow, they moved as a unit. Not employer and employee, not CEO and driver. Not even just two people who'd chosen each other. A family, imperfect and uncertain, and that was enough.